thing is, why are we doing it? Well, we've been holding a lot of open days here in the Hornetworks for different car clubs. We've had the Elvis Club and the Volkswagen Club and the Bus and Coach Society and the Trenton Club and the Maryborough Club, all these different ones coming along. And I thought, well, the people that really want to use are insiders. Why don't we have a day for the insiders? Because it's really the insiders, the people that are in this room, and one or two that would be if they had the good health, and have had to apologise, such as John Gray's had to apologise, for example, because of health. And Wellington, we're hoping he won't come this evening, even though he can't make it this afternoon. But it's because of what the ingenuity and generosity and all the efforts that people have put together, that having these cars now after 60 years is possible. Otherwise it wouldn't be possible. And when I looked at the dates, it really amazed me, because we had been playing with these cars now for 60 years. My first one was in the coin gun there, and I acquired that in 1965. And more than half of, I've got 15 of these cars, and more than half of them date back to the 1960s and 1970s hunt to try and find them. And so the first thing we had to do was use quite a lot of ingenuity to locate these cars. I've never seen a Hornet Special. There was only one on the road in Victoria, which is Don Santon's one, which was for sale in Brunswick. I went to see it in Victoria Street, Brunswick. Don went too, but he went with the white coloured money. So it became Don's, and that was the only Hornet Special on the road. And Hornets themselves were pretty rare at that time. So we had to do a lot of strange work. And in the 1960s, I was studying at Melbourne Uni, and I had to do research in the Bayview Library there. I found that in the basement they had the entire hard copy set of the age going back to the year dot. So instead of doing my university work, I spent all the time at uni copying out used car ads during the week, and then at the weekend we go to the place where they advertised the car and see if it was still there. And this is how I got my first Hornet Special, which is the coupe over there. The coupe had been advertised 8 years earlier than my visit, but no one had bought it. So the bloke in East Bentley was quite surprised to have a customer turn up 8 years after he put the ad in the age. And I said, "Have you got a Hornet Special?" He said, "Yeah, that's it under the tree over there." And so that's the first Hornet Special I ever set item. So this method of reading used car ads, Michael's coded to its apogee, because he subsequently, thanks to electronic developments and extreme patience on his part, has managed to read every used car ad in every capital city in Australia since 1935. I think that's right.
Since 1930.
So we actually know every Hornet that's been advertised since that time. And so that's just one example of the kind of application people have made, but there's been application in the way of people with great skills, like Luke Story. Now, we're going to elect Luke and a couple of others to our Hall of Fame, which we've got on the other side in a few minutes. Luke was a motor trimmer. He was also a slater. There's a very big Catholic church in Richmond, and he used to walk up to the top of the Catholic church spire and replace the slates. And I once built a very small Hornet shed with a slate roof, and Luke did the slates for me. But more particularly, he did the trimming beautifully on a lot of the cars that we've got, including this 18 years, the headline there. It's done by Luke Story, and as well as that, he did beautiful paintings of the cars. And there's a painting of my Hornet over there, like the display cabinet, done by Luke Story, so we'll elect him. So that's kind of the ingenuity that Michael's shown, reading all those newspaper ads. There's the engineering brilliance that Lewis has continued to show over the years. The Stanton family has this absolute brilliance in everything to do with anything. And Lewis, for example, example, spent Friday dismantling the acacia seats on the limo over the back there so they can be retrimmed. But it doesn't matter whether it's building a new engine from scratch or solving an absolutely impossible problem. Lewis has been there to do it. And of course, sitting next to him is Don. Now, I first met Don in 1966, and he was the kind of epicenter of horses in Melbourne with a very, very vast experience and also a great degree of ability to solve problems. Now, I can give you a very concrete example of Don's ability to solve problems. We had a railway, which you might have seen on one of the screens, and we decided it would be good to have a locomotive rather than just have push carts on this railway. So we did the obvious thing, which was to write to the Hunslet Engine Company in Leeds, in England, which were the last company in the world to make small 2-foot gauge steam locomotives. And we wrote to them in the last year that they ever made a 2-foot gauge steam locomotive. And they sent a brochure, just like we would go to a car show and get a brochure. We get a brochure for a 2-foot gauge steam locomotive. It was $8,000. But we just, even though we were good at passing the hat round, we couldn't scrape 8,000. In terms of passing the hat round, we got this hearse on passing the hat round. Don and Bill and myself each put in $700, so we could buy this thing for $2,100. So anyway, we didn't get the steam loco, but I saw an internal combustion loco for sale in Frankston. So I went to the auction and bought it. And I hired a truck from Hertz in the morning, and the bloke said at Hertz, "What do you want to shift?" And I said, "Oh, an engine." Well, it was an engine. He'd known I was trying to shift a locomotive on his beautiful new truck. That might have been a different story. So after buying this locomotive down in Frankston, they had a mobile crane and they put it on the truck. Then I started driving back towards Bacchus Marsh where this railway was. And I was driving up Beach Road and I was thinking to myself, well, they put this loco onto the truck, that's good, it's not falling off. But what happens when I get to the other end? How do I get it off? I had no idea. So I do what I'd always done in those times, which is ring up Don at school, and I said, "Don, I've got a locomotive on a truck. I need some help in about an hour and a half's time. It needs a bit of problem solving." And Don went to his headmaster and said, "Boss, I need some time off, I've got to shift the locomotive." And Don's boss said, "Oh, right, and let him off." And he met us up in the bush, and he somehow organised a gang of drongos that were standing around to create levers and pulleys and I don't know what, and get this locomotive down onto the ground. And we used it as our main motive power on the railway for many years. It's now up at Alexandra in a museum railway up there with a lot of other stuff from this location. So that was the third thing we needed, great ingenuity, as well as the mechanical ability, as well as the kind of skilled lieutenant. And another thing we needed to make this possible was enormous generosity. And Andy's here today. Andy's dad, Bill Sherritt, is possibly the most generous person that ever lived on the planet. His parents were the same. When we were teenagers, we would always be welcome there at any hour of the night or morning and be welcomed and never thrown out just because of unreasonable behaviour, which was continuous. But Billington has inherited that fabulous generosity. I've twice been thrown on the street with my collection of cars, and I've had to ring up Billington and say, "Look, can I come and park a couple of cars at your place?" And he never said for how long, and I couldn't have really replied, "Oh, about 45 years." But that was what the story was. He allowed me to park cars there on 2 occasions. The second occasion was when the Toolern Vale operation unexpectedly closed down. And so we had to shift everything very quickly. Now the other thing you need to keep a bunch of cars like this together is sheds. Now this shed we're in now is the 10th in generation since 1965. The first one was in Printery in Collingwood, and then it was a piggery in Park Orchards, and it was a grappa distillery in North Brighton, and then it was this big operation at Toolern Vale, and then I built another shed down at Colac in the Otways, and then it was up to Ararat, and then from Ararat finally down to here. Each of those, moving 15 cars at a time, up through 10 different sheds. That's 150 occasions of moving. And all of this was only possible because these guys were there to help and generous with their time and ingenuity and so on. So the bottom line is, I realise that when these different car clubs come and look at these cars, it's like going to a used car yard. The cars don't actually mean anything. But to us they mean a huge amount because we've spent 60 years working around them, trying to really preserve them against all the various threats that conserving artefacts like this involve. And we've actually been through the whole gamut of famous threats. That is theft, fire, insects, rodents, bad memory, all of these things. And the fact that this has survived for 60 years and the group of friends that survived for 60 years reminded me that having a bunch of cars is one thing, it's the group of people that are associated with this that really makes it possible and meaningful. And that's why we've established the Hall of Fame up on the wall. And one by one we're going to get the pictures and stories of the people who have been involved in this up on the wall for a Hall of Fame. And this afternoon there's 3 new ones and 1 update to be added. And the normal way of doing this is by acclamation, and I'll get Michael just to read a couple of paragraphs from each citation for the Hall of Fame. We won't try and read them all, we'll just give you an idea of what they all are. And apart from the cars and the people, the third thing is the stories. So just before we get on to the Hall of Fame, I want to give you no more than 4 little stories about the cars that are in here. It'll only take a moment. But the stories are the things that come out of the interaction of the cars and the people. The first story I want to give you is about this exhibit here. Now, the Santini plan was well represented today, originated in Genova in Italy. It's the English called Genoa, but it's really Genova. And Genova was governed by the House of Savoy. And one of the most famous women in the House of Savoy was Princess Margherita. Princess Margherita of Savoy married King Umberto of Italy when Italy was unified by Garibaldi. And the most important fact about them is that they went to King Umberto was assassinated by some anarchists in 1900, but Prince Margherita became the Queen of the unified Italy, and she went to Naples. And when she went to Naples, she heard about the pizza. So she went to the famous pizza bar in Naples and ordered a pizza in the colours of the Italian flag, green for white for mozzarella, red for tomatoes, and green for basil. And so that's how the pizza margherita was invented. Now the importance of this to us is the only known Wolseley of Italy saloon that was operated by Princess Margherita, who comes from Genova, the home of the Santini. But what they did also make were push bikes, and they were very successful at making push bikes. And they won the Giro d'Italia twice in 1928 and 1932, and they had stage wins in the Tour de France. And this was when Mussolini was running Italy and they had all these fascist artists. These are a couple of fascist posters from Wolsey's period under Mussolini. There is one Wolsey racing car in the VSCC in England as well as the thing. And one day I was having a session like this with one of the local car clubs. I think it was the Volkswagen Club, and I told this story, and a bloke up the back said, "Would you like a Wolsey bike?" He said, "I've got one." And so I said, "Sure." So this bike here is a Wolseley bike that was produced by a fellow in Ballarat that was sitting here in the room quite unexpectedly. So that was Wolseley's first story, is Wolseley's connection with Italy. We always knew Wolseley was the first British car, certainly, built by a person who'd learned, Herbert Austin, a person who'd learned mechanical drawing in North Melbourne and been given the mechanical drawing prize by Professor Kernow at Melbourne Uni in North Melbourne Town Hall, which was why, when he went back to England and he had to design the Austin 7 on his billiard table after dinner, he had the drawing skills to do it because he'd been taught how to draw here in North Melbourne. So that's the connection. The first British car very early in Italy, and of course up there is the first Japanese truck. That picture up there is the first Japanese truck because Wolseley built the first Japanese car. And the little tin over there is pretty much what it was because just after World War I, Wolseley entered the market, post-World War I market, by putting the first two popular cars with overhead cam engines on the market, which is the 10 and the 15. And they were exported to Japan under the technical cooperation agreement and so on. One of Wolseley's engineers went to live permanently with Isuzu, which is the company that built the first Japanese car. 200 of these E310s were sent to Japan. They were very popular, but the first car actually built in Japan was the big brother of that, the Wolseley 15. So that's my second story, the origins of Wolseley's reaching to Japan and Italy as well as building the first British car. The third story concerns the hearse. So we always wanted a hearse. We found this one in July. Don and Bill and myself got £700 each, and we built it back and used it for some very good parties. I remember going up to Norm Grant's place in Croydon for a good party where they demonstrated the swing dancing in the back of this hearse. But the real story about the hearse I got from a fellow called Alan Willingham, who's in the Elvis Club, VSCC and other places. And funnily enough, I was down in Government House and I started talking to him and I showed him a picture of the hearse and he said, I remember that. We kidnapped Happy Hammond in that. And I said, that's strange, what happened? And he said, well, there was a big celebration in Geelong and we had a treasure hunt. And the car club had a treasure hunt, and part of the big municipal celebration was that Happy Hammond, the children's TV presenter in Melbourne, was the guest. And the car club had on his treasure hunt one of the items to be scavenged was Happy Hammond, so they kidnapped Happy Hammond in his hearse and they took him up to the Barrable Hills, eventually behind Geelong, letting out the Barrable Hills pub, where someone rescued him from. So the hearse has got quite an interesting story behind it. So that's my third story. And for my final one, you'll be relieved to hear it just concerns the 10 over there, which is the most recent addition to the collection. Well, in 1965, a 10 was advertised in The Age, and Michael can testify to that because he has read that ad, along with every other ad that was ever published, and he knows that that's correct. It was in, and so it was in a place called Woodland, halfway between Melbourne and Sydney. So I drove up like Devils to try and get there to get this 10. But one guy drove down from Sydney, and the distance is shorter, so he got the 10. His name was Barry Cliff, and he became a good pal. And he was a 707 flight engineer, so he had the 10. This A10 in Sydney. 18 months ago, this 10 became available in Katoomba. So the same thing happened. I raced up to get it, and got it from the old bloke, and I said, did you ever meet a fellow called Barry Cliff? And he said, oh yes, I got some parts from him. So there's bits of the 10 that I didn't get in 1965 came home to roost. And I suppose I should mention the limo after that. I was studying in England in 1972, and I rang up Don just before I left, and I said, is there anything you want while I'm in England before I leave? And he said, oh yes, I want a limo. So I picked up the equivalent of the training post, and there was a limo for sale, so I went to board it for £100. And that's how that car came to be in Australia. It passed through a lot of hands, and finally it became possible to secure it for lots of beautiful stories along the way. Now I think we might go straight on to the elections to the Hall of Fame. This is an update for Don and Carol. They're already up there, but we're going to update their citation. Just to read us a couple of words there.
Carol Santon has owned and operated the famous Sport King Don Special for 60 years. Don Santon's name is synonymous with Wolseley, reflecting his ownership of more than 100 Wolseley vehicles of many types, from the Don Special to the Series 3 limousine and the 611. Don and Carol had assisted hundreds of Wolseley owners over the years and have provided a lifetime support to the conservation of classic Wolsleys.
So we elect them by acclamation.
John Millier, who we lost earlier this year, died suddenly. He was an incredibly active person with regard to cars. He was at every car show, every swap meet, all around the country, forever and ever. He was a very friendly and warm man, and decided to cheat as well. He was very cheeky, that's how they came in. And he's had a 25 horsepower saloon, and recently a Hornet Special that he's restored. So it's a sad loss for all of us. And he's written, Don was a skilled engineer with many years of experience maintaining the aircraft fleets at Ansett, ANA and Qantas. He devoted himself for many years and in retirement to the preservation and restoration of a wide range of Wolseley vehicles, including a Santon 51 Hornet Special, a Series 3 Drophead Coupe, and many other specific vehicles. And limited. So we're going to get a photo of Bill. Billington is today elected to the Hornetworks Hall of Fame, acknowledging his sustained commitment and achievement in the preservation and restoration of old Wolsleys. For 60 years, Bill Sherrick has played a foremost role in the preservation of old Wolsleys. He has shown limitless generosity and provided endless help to numerous old Wolseley owners whose projects would not have been undertaken, let alone completed, without his advice and readiness to assist with rare and vital experience. Very true of John Manning too, because he had a lot of building and parts and 25s for example. His achievement in preserving unique 25 horsepower Series 2 and Series 3 Wolsleys is unparalleled, and his own 25s and the many others he has supported with assistance owe their existence to his efforts. And for Luke, Luke's story, who's no longer with us either. Luke was the motor trimmer that Bill was talking about earlier. Luke was an exquisite craftsman whose skills include those of master motor trimmer, slater and oil painter. His paintings provide unique insight into the use and preservation of old Wolsleys. You can often see paintings of Wolseley cars in the Australian bush, and most of the Luke's are. His work as a steepljack. What's a steepljack? His work as a steepljack included the repair of iconic slate reels on iconic and massive buildings in London. And now I want to say a few things about the limousine that's over there. Bill was describing a group of friends in the 60s, so this is how this all started. So it was 3 or 4 guys who became friends and had an interest in trains, because they were train spotters, and in Wolsleys. And they mainly had these 18 horsepower cars, which is the one that is behind theirs here. So I figure there are perhaps more than 1,000 that came here after the war. England was very keen to export cars around the world to pay off its war debts. Chrysler's and Austins straight after the war. So there were thousands of these 18 horsepowers here, and they were cheap at the time, which is why these guys got into it. But one day, Billington got word of a limousine, and it was in Ballarat, and it was just a rumour, and I think it was Sturt Street, might have been Drummond Street, but it was someone who lived on that street, which was one of the main drags through Ballarat, had a Wolseley limousine, and he'd never heard of one. And so he went and knocked on doors, but there were hundreds and hundreds of cars. It was a long street, and of course he started at the wrong end. So he met everyone in Ballarat and finally got down the other end, found the car, and acquired it. But that car for us became the central sort of Wolseley Mafia car. Its most exciting thing was a car that these guys worshipped. It was the main party car. It did everyone's wedding. And so Billington's done an incredible job of preserving it. It still goes. He registered it as with a number plate LMO, which you know Les, is 1971 or 1970, 1969. When would LMO be? About 71, probably 1970 perhaps. So you can imagine how rare these things were. That I don't think any were exported to Australia except by legal, by special demand, by some police commissioner who was ex-England, who just had to have one, and that sort of thing. And that's the reason that Don jokingly said to Bill that day, when Bill said, "What would you like me to bring back from England?" Because Bill was thinking of Brighton or a bit of candy or something. And Don said, 25 horsepower limousine, knowing full well that was impossible. So Bill found one, and Bill later told the story that the guy you bought it from was an Arthur Daly kind of man. And looking through the records just yesterday, I noticed that his name was Daly. So in Olympia, off the street, you bought from Warren Daly the 25 horsepower limousine. And we know a lot about that period because Don and Bill wrote lots of letters to each other, which was quite amusing. I've got some of it here. And this is a letter from Don to Bill, it was email. Bill had written, "It is bitterly cold here and gets dark at about 4 o'clock. We've both got colds and it is necessary to leave a 2 kilowatt radiator on all the time in order to warm the air." Just like tonight. Don, you might have forgotten, but getting the car from customs and quarantine was a massive job. You had to go to customs house 5 times because they didn't believe the value you put on the car, so you had to go 5 times to explain the value of the Wolseley limousine. I think I know what you're up to there. And at quarantine, it didn't quite go through the quarantine check because the car did not fit on quarantine's hoist. And you reported that the tow truck driver said the biggest car he'd ever moved before was a Buick Riviera, but it was all overhand, so it fitted on his truck very well, but it did not fit on his truck. So he got another truck, and you eventually got it, and there was a wharf strike as well, so it was stuck out on the water. So you eventually got the car gone at 4 o'clock on a Wednesday. You had a truck deliver it to the house. Meanwhile, Bill's still in Muswell Hill with his 2 kilowatt radiator on. And Don, you wrote in capitals, "We love it, we love it." At 6 p.m. that day, word spread fast. 10 of us sat down to dinner, ably prepared by Carol. Some visitors included Bill Sherrick, Jim Baines, Bunsen, Ray Muggs and others. 17 folk came that night. We found the engine seized properly, no movement. Much swearing and pushing later, still no movement. Last night and this morning I took off the head and sunk. Took out all the pistons and bearings and broke her loose. I haven't put the mic on the parts yet, but visually they look okay. The seizure was caused by rust, not breakage. So we're very excited by that. I hope to clean them tonight and put the whole deal together again. All valves in the head are okay. Obviously just been valved around. I can't tell if all the pistons are original or not. My dad loves it and he will start on the woodwork in a few days. So there's a good example of all the friends rushing around to see this incredible car. And as Bill said, it's been through quite a few owners, and recently Bill has got the car back. And so I just want to say that the Santon family are very, very happy that you rescued this thing, and it was rescued because it was about to be destroyed. I'm particularly happy that Bill had the idea to purchase the limousine, because it was about to go in the kit, and Bill has launched into fixing it and bringing it back and putting it on the road. So by way of thanks, I want to give you something. Recently I was going through my old boxes of Jerusalem parts, and I found the car's number plate. So you can see the photo of the car in London Street when Warren Daly was selling me the car. And in one of the letters they report that it describes the headlining and the damage and whatnot, and the marks on various parts of the car. But the rear spare wheel carrier where the number plate goes had been hit. It did have a bit of a crash in the back. So Bill, I present to you the original number plate from London 1972. This is a number plate from late 1938, early 39.
That is fantastic.
And English number plates tell a story, and because it's Eon, we know that it was a Birmingham registered car, and we know that what year it was registered in. Now, there weren't many people in Birmingham buying Wolseley limousines. It wasn't really the market for them. So that's what lets us believe that this was probably a factory car. So registered by the factory, and we know that during the war there were 2 royal visits to the factory, and there's photos of 7 limousines there. So for some, they probably had them for their staff and their own managing directors, but there's a story yet to emerge, and that's what Bill will be studying when he goes to England in a few weeks' time, trying to find out who the original owner of this limousine was, because it must have been someone important to start with. Yeah, and so this is the original damage. So thank you, Bill.
Thank you so much.
So that's it.
So the plan is that so we can hang around here and chat and look at things, and the next thing on the formal timetable is at 6 p.m. at the American Hotel in Prestwick. And hopefully, I suppose, would you say, there may be a 5% chance we might be able to extract Billington for that purpose.
Well, we'll definitely be on the phone for this.
And what about Tom?
Tom's there. We may.
Yeah, but Tom could come to dinner.
I'm not 100%. I like to.
Well, we've got putty pies over there, and sausage rolls, and apple tea cake, and orange roughy cake. And a beautiful quiche that Sharon made. Please have a go at the quiche. And
It's a zucchini slice.
it's a zucchini slice. It's a zucchini. Would you like to comment on this? Zucchini slice.
It's a very, very lovely homemade zucchini slice that Sharon made yesterday. Pretty enjoyable.
And finally, thanks everyone for making the journey. Thanks Manny for the photography, and Will for the sound, and everyone else for the contributions. Thank you.
doing good. Just probably feeling a bit sore and the cold that we get.
If he doesn't, please tell him my regards. Years ago in the 70s,
Yeah, well that's where
Ironically, we're living right near there now. Not the Carmina, but go down to the beach there. Not Carmina Road, the very south end, just before the Duncan Reserve. Yeah.